Well, hello, my YouTube fellas and gals. So today I'm going to do a video of the books that I'm actually loading to my Whatnot marketplace. And if you don't have the Whatnot app, it's real easy to navigate on your phone, your iPad, your computer. You can join under my link, which I will put under the description below when the video's over. And I have over 1,000 listings right now between a bunch of different things. It's not going to be just books, but the majority of books is right now. So I just want to let you know, when you click into Whatnot and you go to the search engine, you have to go across the top and look for products. When you look for products, you lock it in, you type in what you're looking for. Doesn't matter what it is, and it'll pull it up in the search engine. So we're going to start with Westerns. I missed you guys, so I figured I would come back and start with videos. I'm trying to make my comeback a little slow, but hopefully I will get there. This is Defiance of Eagles by William Johnstone with J.A. Johnstone. And if they are series, it will be listed in the description. So this is a condition of the book. You know, I have my little cheat sheet back here. I use my Post-it notes. 2013 copyright. It is book 18 in the Eagles book series, and this is what the book's about. Boyd Falcon McAllister is heir to a proud Scottish tradition, a man who has built a legend of courage on the American wild frontier. In all this new novel from William Johnstone and J.A. Johnstone, Falcon meets his opposite, an outlaw who has forged a legend of evil. Even the battlegrounds by defying the odds. Boyd Ackerman is no ordinary criminal. Trained by the U.S. Army, commanding his band of killers with military efficiency, Ackerman has outsmarted and outfought every lawman who has tried to stop him, but he's never faced a McAllister before. Falcon McAllister wasn't looking for a fight. Then, Ackerman's raids killed his niece's husband and takes the young woman hostage. Falcon and his brothers ride into action with 3 transplanted sons of the Scottish Highlands. Attacking an army of steely-eyed, battle-hardened killers, a small Montana town will bear witness to the bloodiest and most hellish gun battle in the history of the frontier. So that is the first book. The second book is another Buckhorn, Paid in Blood by William Johnstone with J.A. Johnstone. This is a 2016 copyright. It is book 2 in the Buckhorn series. So I want you to always know what your books look like. And even if you don't read books, you use a Kindle, I'm a resource center too, so you can go look these books up if you're interested in what the synopsises have to say. Paid in Blood. When a wealthy cattle baroness hires Joe Buckhorn to track down her son, it sounds like easy money, but when he learns that the boy has run off with a girl whose father is a leader of a cattle wrestling rally clan, Buckhorn's only hope is to infiltrate the gang, gain their trust, live the outlaw life even at the risk of death. There is just one problem. There's more than one gang. The rally girl may have stolen a runaway boy's heart, but the other gangs are stealing the Baroness's cattle, which puts Buckhorn in the middle of a violent, blood-soaked range war. If he chooses the wrong side, he's as good as dead, but if he follows his gut and lives, there's going to be the darkest kind of hell to pay. So the next book is The Frontiersman, The Darkest Winter by William Johnstone with J.A. Johnstone. This is 2017 copyright. It is book 3 in the Frontiersman series. You know I always clean my books. I go through them. So you don't get any ripped out pages. You get the story. Exiled. He followed the call of the wild. Killers followed him. Exiled from the Smoky Mountains for gutting down a man in self-defense, Beck Wallace tries to make a new home in St. Louis. Even tries his hand at romance, but some men are too wild to settle down. Beck is soon back on the trail, where a vicious gang of trappers after his good picks up his scent and begins to dog his every step. until Breck's only choice is to bed down for the winter with a tribe of friendly Indians. In the frigid, brutal cold of a Rocky Mountain winter, he hopes to find peace. But death is not done with Breck Wallace. When Breck's partner Morgan is left for dead, the frontiersman might ride deeper into the mountains than he has ever gone before. Peace be damned. The blood will flow until vengeance is his alone. The next book I have is Luke Jensen, Bounty Hunter, Death Rides Alone. This is William W. Johnstone with J. Johnstone again. This is, don't need my hair, copyright 2016. And this is book 5 in the Luke Jensen Bounty Hunter series. Law of the Gun. Luke Jensen has earned this bounty hunting down the violent man charged with murdering a preacher's daughter. The outlaw Judd Tyler confesses to many crimes, but not the girl's murder. And he tells Luke they won't reach the town of White Fork alive because a corrupt sheriff does the bidding of a cattle baron, and that man's son is a true killer. Sure enough, halfway to White Fork, Luke and his prisoner are battling for their lives. And when they finally reach town, they're greeted by a storm of bullets, betrayal, and blood. With a band of innocent travelers caught up in the melee, Luke is outgunned, surrounded, and sure of only this: his only job now is survival by the measured, efficient, righteous killing of as many men as he can. The next book I have is called The Pearly Gates by William Johnstone with A.J. Johnstone again. This is a 2018 copyright, is book 1 in the Pearly Gates series. This is the only part I see it's really bad. And then, of course, you have some wear, because it is used books. And a used bookstore, for people who don't know, for 13 years. And now my stuff is on Whatnot. Getting there. He's the son of a cattle rancher, a restless young dreamer who, under normal circumstances, would follow in his father's footsteps. Normal, however, is not his style. Like his favorite grandfather and namesake, Pearly Gates, a hell-raising mountain man with a heavenly name, young Pearly wants an adventure, excitement, and freedom. And like his grandfather before him, he will find his dream in the untamed wilds of a lawless frontier. That dream, though, might just become a nightmare. After his father's death, Pearly strikes out on his own. His first order of business is to track down the grandfather whose name he shares. When he crosses into Oklahoma territory, young Pearly discovers that the trail is full of dead ends and near-death encounters. Hostile Indians, wanted outlaws, and bloodthirsty killers are just a few of the dangers waiting for him, and the closer he gets to finding the original Pearly Gates, the closer he comes to meeting his maker at the fabled gates they're named for. So the next book I have, this is Treasure Mountain by Louis L'Amour. This is definitely an older copy, and you will get aged-looking pages in some of these. This is a 1972. This is actually pretty good for 72. This is book 15 in the Sackett series. I don't have the whole series to put them together yet. If I do, I will. But for now, people might be just missing certain books, so you can come and finish your collection. How do you bring $1 million in gold down off a mountain? First, you have to find it, and that's mighty hard when you're tracking a trail that's 20 years old. But the Sackett brothers and were determined to find the treasure in their father. They just hoped they were smarter than those New Orleans folks who also wanted the gold and were willing to kill for it. So there's that book. The next book we have is The High Graders by Louis L'Amour. This one's 1971 copyright. It is book number 24 in his standalone book, so this is not a part of a series. Rafter Crossing was a town building for an explosion when Mike Shelvin rode in. The cattlemen swore they closed down the mines because they were poisoning the range water. The miners were stealing the high-grade ore that rightfully belonged to Lane Tennyson. Lane hired Mike Shelvin to get her ore back. He had an old debt he wanted to pay back with lead, not gold. The next book I have, this one's got some tape on it. It's in rough shape, so I kind of listed under poor shape because of that reason, but you will always get the story. Remember that. I go through and make sure there's no pages ripped out or anything. This is 1982, book 8 in the Sackett series. And this one here, I can't read the back because it's covered, so I'm going to read this part here. Somewhere a wolf howled. The sun was down, but it was not dark yet. 3 men came out of the brush ahead of me. "We've been waiting for you, Sackett," the first one said, and he lifted his gun. He hadn't seen the Winchester alongside my leg. I just tilted it with my right hand, grabbed the barrel with my left, and shot him through the belly. Without moving from my tracks, I fired at the second man and saw him go spinning. The third man was too scared to shoot, but I knew that just over the hill there were 40 more, and I had a sick girl and a wounded old man to look after. So that's that book. And then here is the 10th one. I do all my genres by 10s when I do my lives on Whatnot, so that's how you're going to see these shown. And whatever hasn't sold is what I want to do the videos on during my live, so that way you see what I'm loading into the marketplace if you're interested. And I do approximately 50, so I think I have 49 books to read today. The synopsis is too, so it'll be a while. You can take and do your work around your house while you're listening, or you can fall asleep. So this is Jubal Sackett by Louis L'Amour. And this is the aged. I get told my voice puts people to sleep, so hey, I'll relax ya. The only thing that's wrong with this book mainly is this crack besides the discoloration. This is a 1986 book. Book 4 in the Sackett series. And my prices are low. They usually read between $1 and $5, so we're good. Wilderness explorer Jubal Sackett was the son of Barnabas Sackett, the son of that name to come to New World Jubilee, feared no man. Well, I can't say all of them because we might have special books that might be higher, but for the most part. I'm a thrifter, so I sell thrifty. Jubal feared no man nor backed away from any challenge. His fierce determination to blaze new trails took him across the vast, savage North American continent where no man had been seen before, living and fighting among the Indian tribes. Jubal Sackett forged a legend as powerful medicine man, as they called Nikwana, master of mysteries, with, sorry if I butcher it, Ichikomi, the proud Natchez princess. He walked the path of courage that future Sacketts would follow. So there is that one. And of course, these would all fall. Book-a-lich, book-a-lich. Get these set back up here. Okay. So the next set of books I have will be what I consider action and suspense. Now you have to realize my action and suspense books aren't normal. They usually consist of anything that's sci-fi, military, anything that I feel is action suspense. Because I keep my genres like together, and my educational will seem weird because I have autobiography, self-help, and all that kind of stuff mixed into things, because I don't like having a bunch of different genres. I think it makes it easier for people to navigate. If you go to my Whatnot store, you type in B, you will see everything with books. You type in C, you'll see everything with crafts. I have them labeled by letters and numbers to make it easy to navigate. So this is called Poseidon's Arrow with Clive Cussler and Dirk Cussler. It's got a little bit of spotting right there. This is a 2013 copyright. It's book 22 of 27 in the Dirk Pitt Adventure series. I like how he has cars on the back of his books. And this is what this is about. Poseidon's Arrow is the greatest advance in American defense technology in decades. An attack submarine capable of incredible underwater speed. There's only one problem. A key element of the prototype is missing, and the man who developed it is dead. At the same time, ships are starting vanishing mid-ocean, usually never to be found again, but when they are, sometimes bodies are found aboard, burned to a crisp. What is going on, and what does it have to do with the Italian submarine that vanished in 1943, or did it? It is up to Newman director Dirk Pitt and his team, aided by a beautiful NCIS agent and by Pitt's children, Dirk Jr. and Summer, to go on a desperate international chase to find the truth. But what they discover is a much greater threat than they imagined. So that's that book. The next book is called Hellstrom's Hive by Frank Herbert. You can see there's a piece there. There's some tape on the book, a little bit of creasing on the back. And then this is some writing right there. This is a 1982 book. It says, Oregon, where the end of the human race begins, a team of government operatives is sent to invade the site of Dr. Hellstrom's secret Project 40. What they find are specifically bred scientists with huge heads and stunted legs who develop weapons that hum with deadly insect venom. Chemically neutered workers capable of poisoning the world, hidden tunnels, immune to atomic fusion hormones of ecstatic sensual pleasures in the vast where everyone finally ends to nourish future generations of Hellstrom's horrifying hive. So there's that book. The next book we have is super duper thick. This is a huge book. This is just some rippled pages in the book. Nothing ripped or anything. This is called Texas, a James A. Merchner novel. That is one big book. The story of Texas is the story of America. Texas, a land of sprawling diversity and unparalleled richness, a dazzling chapter in the history of our nation, a place like no other on earth. The epic saga spanning 4 centuries and 2 continents, charting the dramatic formation of several great dynasties from the age of conquistadors to the present day, the rest, who amassed a legendary fortune by living their own rules. The world be damned. The Quimpers, the quintessential Texan, wheeler-dealers who lustily embodied the taller-than-life myth of their home state, the Cobbs, who parlayed an empire of cotton into unchallenged political wealth. The Garzas, a clan of peasants, bandits, and scholars whose roots in the native soil lay deepest of all, Texas. The next book I have is called 1936 Mission to the Moguls by Eric Flint and Griffin Barber. This is a 2017 copyright, and it is also book 25 in the Ring of Fire series. This is in good shape. It's got a little spot up there. It's a good shaped book. It says, Adventure and Intrigue in the Far East. The United States of Europe, the new nation formed by the alliance between the Swedish king and the West Virginians, hurled back in time by cosmic accident, is beset by enemies on all sides. What's more, the USC needs a reliable source of opiates for those wounded in action, as well as other goods not available in Europe. Prime Minister Mike Stern sends a mission to the Mogul Empire of India, hoping to secure a trade deal with the Mongol emperor. Instead, they find an empire on the brink of war, danger lurking around every corner, and the beautiful and shrewd daughter of an emperor who may be the key to success or a bringer of disaster. The next book I have is called Siege Line from Mike Cole. And this is a 2017 copyright. Is book 3 of 3 in the Shadow Op 5 Reawakening series, or Shadow Ops Reawakening series. The Gemini cell took everything from Jim Schweitzer, his family, his career as a Navy SEAL, even his life, hounded across the country. Schweitzer knows the only way he can ever stop running, the only way his son can ever be saved, is to take the fight to the enemy and annihilate the cell once and for all. But the cell won't be easily destroyed. Out of control and fighting a secret war with the government it once served, it has dispatched its shadowy director to the far reaches of the subarctic in search of magic that could tip the balance of power in its favor. Schweitzer must join with the elite warriors of both America and Canada in a desperate bid to get there first and avert a disaster that could put the cell in control. So there is that book. Then the next book we have, The Lost Order by Steve Berry. This is a 2018 copyright. It is book 12 of 20 in the Cotton Malone series. And this one says, when the news about found treasure gets out, two factions of what remains of the knights rush to seize their fair share. Thrust into the battle is former Justice Department agent Cotton Malone, who has his own ancestral connection to the Knights, one that is far more complicated than he ever could have imagined. As Malone tries to uncover the truth about one of the United States' most legendary secrets, he finds himself on a perilous adventure that takes him from the Senate floor and the back rooms of the Smithsonian Institution to the deep woods in rural Arkansas and the rugged mountains of New Mexico. The Lost Order illuminates our country's dark past and the risks of a potentially darker future. So there's that book. The next book I have is called The Rising by Heather Graham and John Land. This is a 2016 copyright. It is book 1 of 2 in the Rising series. Sorry if a glare comes out on these books. Alex Chen and Samantha Dixon lead ordinary teenage life. This actually sounds like a really good book. He's a football star and homecoming king. She's preparing to graduate high school at the top of her class and pursue a career at NASA. Their world is turned upside down when a football accident lands Alex in the hospital and his CT scan yields abnormal results. His doctor is murdered, then his parents. Death seems to follow him wherever he goes. And now it's after him. Alex flees and tells Samantha not to follow, but she became involved the moment she walked in on his murdered parents. She cannot abandon the boy she loves. The two race desperately to stay ahead of Alex's attacker long enough to figure out why they are hunting him in the first place. The answer lies with a secret buried in his past, the secret his parents died to protect. Alex always knew he was adopted, but he never knew the real reason his birth parents abandoned him. He never knew where he truly came from until now. That sounds so good. Wish I could read all the books I have. This is called Judgment Room by Christine Freehon. She's actually a pretty good author. I've read a few of her books. And this is 2018. It's book 1 in the Torpedo Inc. series. As the enforcer of Torpedo Inc. Motorcycle Club, Reaper lives for riding and fighting. He's a stone-cold killer who turns his wrath on those who deserve it. Feelings are a weakness he can't afford. Until a gorgeous bartender gets under his skin. Near Sea Haven, A small town of Casper has given Annie Rafferty a new lease on life, and she's desperate to hold on to her job at the biker bar, even if it's the scariest member of the club seems to have it out for her. But Reaper's imposing presence and smoldering looks just ratchet up the heat. Annie's touches everything Reaper doesn't want, and it brands him to the bone. But when her secrets catch up to her, Reaper will have to choose between Anya and his club, his heart, and his soul. Sounds like another good read. This one is Extinction War by Nicholas Sansbury Smith. This is a 2017 copyright, is book 7 in the Extinction series. And this one says, in Europe, Master Sergeant Joe Fitzpatrick returns from a mission deep into enemy territory only to find that the variant army is stronger and they're advancing on Paris. Back in the United States, Captain Rachel Davis and Captain Reed Beckman will risk everything to defeat Rot and save the country from collapsing into a civil war. And then the last in this particular action and suspense pile is Vicious Circle by C.J. Box. This is in good condition too. This is a 2018. It is book copyright. Book 17 of 26 in the Joe Pickett series. It says, the past comes back to haunt game warden Joe Pickett and his family with devastating consequences. The Cat's family had always been a bad lot. Joe had been able to strike a fierce blow against them when they critically endangered his daughter April, but he'd always wondered if there would be a day of reckoning. He's not wondering any longer. Joe knows they're coming after him. He has his friend Nate Romanowski by his side, but will that be enough? All he can do is plan and wait for them to make the first move. But when it comes, it is a way for which no amount of planning could have prepared him. So that is that book. Next book we're going to go to is a romance category. And we are going to start with an older author, Janet Daly. She has written a lot of Harlequins. She's a good author. So let me move these books so I don't have another book of Lance real quick. Try to keep organized while I'm talking. Okay. Here we go. So for better or for worse, you tell this is old. Look at those red pages. This is a 1979. It's a Harlequin Presents romance. Stacy wondered why. Wasn't love enough. Cord was still confined to a wheelchair a year after the crash, bitter lashing out at everyone, especially his wife. There seemed to be no way to convince him that her love was not pity. It would have been better if I hadn't been pulled from the plane wreckage, he told her, and Stacy despaired at her inability to comfort him. Then Paula Hansen, a confident physiotherapist, arrived. She taunted Cord into helping himself, restoring his interest in living, but had she also replaced Stacy in his life. So the next book we have is another Janet Daly called Bedfellows. Strange Bedfellow. Strange Bedfellow. 1979. Whoever kept this did a pretty good job. Another Harlequin Presents. I went through hell to return to you. Donna was overcome by guilt when she heard her husband's words, but she couldn't welcome him back with open arms. Blake had been missing in the South American jungle for 2 years. She had believed he was dead. When he made his dramatic reappearance, she had just become engaged to his best friend. Oh, that would be awful. The years had changed her Blake's savage fight for survival had turned into a primitive stranger, him. How could they make their marriage work again? That sounds interesting. This one here is Return to Santa Flores by Iris Johnstone. She's a good author too. She writes good novels. 1984. Jenny Cashman had dreamed of returning from school to Europe to declare her love for Steve Jason, the rugged casino owner who had adopted her as a young girl when her father died. She tried everything she could to win him, see her for the woman she had become. But each day she spent in his Las Vegas hotel, finding her needing a last-minute rescue from a fate worse than death. Steve would have no peace while Jenny's desires were frustrated. But he couldn't protect her from one man she wanted with all her heart. Though he felt years older and much too jaded for her innocent love, Steve discovered that Jenny would never give herself to another man, no matter what it took, to crash through his defenses. Love swept. Love stories you'll never forget by authors you'll always remember. The next book is Megan's Choice by Rosie Dow. This is definitely a library one. It's real stiff and laminated. This is a 1996 copyright. It says, the Civil War has left her an orphan. After years of turmoil and tragedy, Megan Westcott is close to despair when her young brother contracts rheumatic fever. Desperate to pay for Jeremy's hospital care, she answers an ad seeking a housekeeper who's willing to move to the Colorado Territory. But Stephen Chamberlain, a former Confederate soldier and riverboat gambler, wants more than a maid. He wants a hired-by-the-month wife, so he'll receive a substantial inheritance promised by his father's will. In Colorado, rustlers and land disputes await the newlyweds, as well as the Christian message. Will Stephen and Megan survive the rigors of the mountainous land as strangers or as lovers? The next book I have is called Copper's Guilt by Rosalie Hennigan. This is a regular Harlequin romance. Oh, I think the last book was a Heart Song Presents. And then the other one before that, the Johansson, was a Love Swept. I try to let people know that because people collect specific types of books. This is a regular Harlequin old romance. Frances was shattered when she learned the man she'd fallen for was already married. She broke off with him immediately and decided to get as far away there'd be no danger of running into him again. Through the help wanted ad, she landed a job on a sheep station in the wilds of New Zealand. There she met Ian Burnley and soon found herself in danger of jumping from one frying pan into the fire. The next book I have is a Harlequin Presents. It is called Law of Love by Sally Haywood. It is a 1990 book. It's got a little bit of spot right there. I try to show. It wasn't his fault he'd made her feel this way. It was her own fault for loving him. When she first met Barrister Con Arlington, Kim didn't realize he was really Conan Arlington Forbes, the man responsible for her mother losing her home or living in all her dreams. Kim held a grudge against him for 5 years. Now she felt shattered, but Con couldn't understand the depths of her anguish. All he could see was their mutual attraction, and he just couldn't give up. So that's that book. Next book we have is another Harlequin Presents. You can see there's writing. This is called Riley's Woman by Janet Daly. You can see the spotting, the red pages again. This is a 1978. And it says, Leigh was reluctant to leave the mountain site where their plane had crashed for the hostile desert beyond. We could die out here, she argued, but Raleigh was part Indian, and she discovered that her strong, resourceful companion could survive in primitive conditions with relatively little hardship. Perhaps this was his attraction to her, this and the intimacy of their isolated situation. But would their return to civilization, as he predicted, diminish the special bond between them? And I'm hoping I'll sell enough books and items to pay for my battery for my car. I've been having so many issues with things breaking down this year. I mean, I'm sure we all do, but it's been crazy this year. So this is a Harlequin romance. It's got a little bend up here in the corner. It says, "Come Love Me" with Lillian Peake. There's a little bend right there. This is actually a 1984 copyright. I love it too sometimes when they leave the ads in them. They're cool. Why wouldn't Gareth listen to reason? Naomi Pemberton reluctantly agreed to a 2-year separation from her fiancé. Although she knew Gareth was the only man for her, he wanted her to be sure. Then he returned by the time Naomi was caring for her illegitimate baby of her sister Claire and trying to help Claire's abandoned boyfriend cope with fatherhood. Could anyone blame Gareth for jumping to conclusions and swearing he never wanted to see Naomi again? So that's that book. The next book we have is another Harlequin Presents. It's called The Hawk of Venice by Sally Wentworth. A little bit of rating there. A little bit of age. This is a 1986. You accuse me of lying, Count Barini denied all knowledge of Petra's friend Sarah, the girl he'd run off with, but Petrina had seen them drive away together in Carlo's red Ferrari, and now Sarah had disappeared. Petra's blood ran cold. Most people came to Venice to fall in love, yet here she was, a mere au-pair girl, accusing a respected Venetian count of kidnapping, seduction at the very least. Then gradually she was drawn in by Carlo's charm, wooed by his almost mesmerizing masculinity, to the point where she almost forgot the circumstances that had brought them together. So there's that book. Then the last one in this particular romance pile is Harlequin Presents The Sun at Midnight by Sandra Field. Back then you could win a free vacation. Look at that. Some writing, some aging. The corner's gone right there. This is a 1993 copyright. It must be embarrassingly clear to everyone that you and I can't stand the sight of each other. Catherine had found peace and indescribable beauty in the brief Arctic summer. The last person she expected or wanted to see was Judd Layton, who with his brother had betrayed her so cruelly 7 years ago, and she certainly didn't want to accompany Judd out on the unforgivable tundra, especially since he seemed to believe that she had wronged him. So that concludes that pile of romance books. So now we go back. Yes, I have a list, so I don't lose my place. We're going back to action and suspense books. So the first one in this one is going to be Strega. At least I think that's how you say the name. Get these books back over here. Okay, so Strega by Andrew Voss, and this is definitely aged and has like speckles on the side. This is from 1996, and it says, Andrew Voss's implacable private eye has a new client, Strega. She wants Burke to find an obscene photograph, and that search will take him into the ocean that flows beneath the city, an ocean whose currents are fresh and money, the anguish of children and pleasure of twisted adults. It is a place that Burke can visit only at the risk of his sanity and his life. But between the power of Strega and his own sense of justice, there is no turning back. He is definitely a crime writer. So the next book I have is called The Doctor's Wife by Elizabeth Brundage. There's some speckles on it. This is a 2005 copyright. It says, the money starts here in my apron pockets with a gun. So begins The Doctor's Wife, a stunning debut novel about 4 people in a cataclysmic, I don't know. You know. It is what it is. I butcher words. Intersection of their life. From the outside, the Knowles family has it all. Michael is a rising OB/GYN at a prominent private practice in Albany, New York. He also moonlights as a local women's health clinic, and they live in a rambling federal farmhouse with their 2 kids. But Annie has become tired of her husband's absences, and her role as wife, mother, teacher has worn thin. She begins a love affair with a bad boy celebrity painter, Simon Haas, who is married to his muse and model, Lydia, upon whom he built his career. Simon reawakens Annie's passions, but events soon take a dark turn for the Knowles family. Abortion, legal evangelism, marital disenchantment, and rifts of social class. Brundage takes on the fault lines of our era with a deft hand. The Doctor's Wife is an accomplished page-turning novel, a fine debut full of psychological suspense, plot twists and turns, malice disguised as religion, and a taint of incest and cheating spouses. Wow. That's definitely a mouthful. So there's that book. Next we have a cute little gesture. Look at that face. This is Jonathan Wild the Great by Henry Felding. This is a 2004 copyright, really nice edition. And this says, Jonathan Wild is truly great, spurning the callow and spiritless ways of lower men. He trudges his own path to fame and glory by way of theft, fraud, and betrayal. Under the guidance of Mr. Snap, a sheriff's officer and receiver of stolen goods, Wild becomes an expert pickpocket and organizes a gang of thieves whose stolen wares he receives and resells at a great profit for himself. His crimes are played out against a backdrop of colorful characters: Miss Molly Straddle, the card shark, Sharp, Count LaRose, and base and weak, we'll just say the woman of the evening, because I'm not going to say that word. Thomas Wild's passage from the cradle to gallows is told with humor that belies the subtlety of the novel's ironic themes and vigor that sparkles characteristics of Fielding's best work. So there's that book. Next we have a hardback book. This one's called The Next Accident by Lisa Gardner. She's a good author. I like her books. It's a 2001 copyright. It says, what do you do when a killer targets the people you love most? How do you protect them when he knows your most secret fears and hidden desires? When he knows just when to strike? And most of all, when he knows the same about you? These are the questions that haunt FBI Special Agent Pierce Quincy. The official police report concluded that his daughter's death was an accident. Adam Quincy was driving drunk when her car careened out of control. Pierce knew about his daughter's problem with alcohol. He knew about her loneliness and insecurity, and so he is certain, did the man who killed her. Quincy is prepared to risk. Wait a minute. He knew about her loneliness and insecurity, and so he is certain did the man who killed her. Okay. Quincy is prepared to risk everything to learn the dangerous truth about Amanda's death, and there is only one person willing to help. Rainey Connor knows all too well the dark side of the human heart. An ex-cop haunted by her own violent past, she had once been paired professionally and personally with the brilliant, supremely local FBI profiler. Quincy had helped Rainey through a harrowing case that shattered her career and left her charged with first-degree murder. Now it's time for Rainey to return the favor. But this killer is like none other these two hard-boiled pros have ever encountered. This twisted psychopath has an insatiable hunger for revenge and for fear. He isn't satisfied with taking his victims' lives. He wants to get inside their minds, strip them of their every defense, and render them powerless to resist. He's already killed twice. Now he's taunting Quincy and Rainey by making it no secret who his next victim will be. Quincy's only surviving daughter. The killer's plan is chilling, brilliant, and unstoppable. The cops won't help. The FBI can't be trusted. As the clock ticks down to the final minutes of an unspeakably intimate act of vengeance, the only way Rainey can unmask this faceless killer is to step directly into his murderous path. She will become a murder waiting to happen. She will be the next accident. That sounds intense. So the next book we have, this is based on a true story. This is called Saved by William Hoffner. It is the story of the Andrea Doria, the greatest sea rescue in history. Of course, another hardback. Love the images inside the cover. It's a 1979 book, and it says, in this totally engrossing book, William Hoffner has recreated the events of this terrifying night and tells a spectacular story of the greatest sea rescue in modern history. He has traveled thousands of miles through America, Europe, to interview scores of survivors and the main crew members of both ships. The result is unforgettable drama of courage and cowardice, of negligence and responsibility, of sensitivity and brutal indifference. Mr. Hoffner tells the amazing story of Linda Morgan Cienfara, aged 14, asleep in her cabin in direct line of the crash, who woke later on the deck of the Stockholm. He tells of one young woman who dives into the ocean to save two children, while another desperate family tries to steal a life jacket from a fellow passenger. We read of an Italian crewman who labors for hours to extricate an injured American woman from a tangle of steel wreckage, and of another crewman who flee the ship before the passengers. Saved is also a riveting minute-by-minute account of the greatest sea rescue in history. Miraculously, all but 51 persons were saved in the transfer to other ships that rallied to the scene. Wow, that sounds good. It says, most people never have to face the ultimate test of courage. At each of us lies the question, what if? At 11:10 p.m. on Wednesday, July 25th, 1956, in a dense fog off Nantucket Island, 1,706 human beings were forced to answer the question. For at that moment, the beautiful Italian passenger liner Andrea Doria was hit broadside by the Swedish liner Stockholm, whose reinforced hull was constructed to withstand the Scandinavian ice floes. The Andrea Doria was mortally wounded, a gaping hole in her side. That sounds like such a good book. Next we have a two-parter. I actually have two of these books. One looks like it might have, I don't know if there's a little bit of white paint right there or what that is. But this is called, let's see, is 1974, called Shardik by Richard Adams. Okay, it didn't have a synopsis because it doesn't have a jacket, so I wrote it out. The story follows Kel Derrick, a hunter who encounters a gigantic bear he believes to be the god Shardik. His discovery leads him on a journey where he becomes a prophet, soldier, and eventually an emperor priest, exploring themes of faith, morality, and the nature of divinity. So that is that. Those two books, two copies. And then next I have Necessary Measures by Hannah Alexander. This is a 2002 copyright. It's book 2 of 3 in the Healing Touch series. There's a little bit of spots on the spine. But then that's in pretty good condition. It's a big softback. It says Dr. Grant Sheldon's move to Dogwood Springs is not turning out as he had planned. The ER is in an uproar. The drug use and the trafficking has become an ever-increasing problem. In addition to taking on more shifts in the ER, Lauren McCaffrey agrees to stay with Grant's twins when he is called out of town. But she soon discovers that keeping track of two headstrong 16-year-old carries some unexpected dangers. After the hospital minister falls ill, the ER is left under the questionable leadership of an unhappy doctor with his own private agenda and the painful personal life. In the midst of turmoil, both Grant and Lauren are forced to come to terms with the pain of loss. Can they also find the joy of hope renewal? Necessary Measures combines a breath-catching pace of authentic emergency medicine with the comfort of small-town faith values. And the next book I have is called Helldivers by Nicholas Sansbury Smith. Very, very white, crispy pages. 2016 copyright is book 1 of 12 in the Helldivers series. It says, more than 2 centuries after World War III poisoned the planet, the final bastion of humanity lives on massive airships circling the globe in search of habitable areas to call home. Aging and outdated, most of the ships plummeted back to Earth long ago. The only thing keeping the 2 surviving lifeboats in the sky are helldivers, men and women who risk their lives by skydiving to the surface to scavenge for parts the ship desperately needs. When one of the remaining airships is damaged in the electrical storm, its helldiver team is deployed to a hostile zone called Hades. And there's something down there far worse than mutated creatures discovered on dives in the past. Something that threatens the fragile future of humanity. And then we have... Oops. Sorry about that. I hit my arm. Okay. This is called Ghost Sniper by Scott McEwen. Another in good shape book. From 2016 copyright. It is book 1 of 4 in the Sniper Elite series. Bob Pope, the director of an American Secret Intelligence anti-terrorism program, has lost contact with his most trusted operative, Navy Master Chief Gil Shannon, fearing him dead with the mission to take out a Swiss banker channeling funds to Muslim extremists goes awry. Now an American politician and her team have been assassinated in Mexico City by Ghost Sniper, an American ex-military gunman for hire employed by Mexico's most ruthless drug cartel. And Pope must turn instead to retired Navy SEAL Daniel Crosswhite and a brand new Sniper Elite hero, ex-Green Beret Chance Vaught, in order to track down the Ghost Sniper and expose the corrupt officials behind this murder's international plot. So that is the last book in this set of action and suspense. And then we go back to Westerns. So the Western book we have is called Louis L'Amour's Sackett's Land. We continue back with Louis L'Amour. This is 1980, book 1 in the Sackett series. It says, I am Barnabas Sackett, and a nasty temper and noble blood were the forces that drove him. He was an English landover whose quick and deadly sword caused him to flee his home for the intrigue of Elizabeth in London, privacy in the open seas, and unforeseen peril in the American wilderness. It was a wilderness he hoped to bend to his bold Sackett will or die in the attempt. The next book we have is called Showdown at Yellow Butte by Louis L'Amour. This is a 1953. It is a standalone book of his. He usually does series. I like how the ads are in there. But this one is by itself. The last outpost, Tom Kedrick, has seen his share of wars. He earned his stripes in the war between the states and fought against the Apache, even soldiered overseas. But in Yellow Butte, in the high desert country of New Mexico, the battle-hardened Kedrick fighting a different kind of war. Alton Berwick has hired him to drive a pack of renegades and outlaws from his land, but soon Kedrick suspects he's fighting on the wrong side, and he is the one man who can stop the massacre of innocent men and women. So there's your showdown. The next book we have is called The Man from Broken Hills. It's rough shape. Look at those ads, even with the buffalo. Ah, pretty cool. This is a 1975. It's book 2 in the Talon series. This says, let me see something on this. Yeah, it's here. The Sacketts were fierce fighting men in the hills of Tennessee. They came from England, bringing with them an independence of mind and boldness of will to conquer any obstacle they might find on the frontier. The Talons were French, but a life of privacy brought them to America. Eager for greater opportunities, they moved westward with the opening of new lands. Milo was half Talon, half Sackett. He'd been riding the outlaw trail for 3 years, but now he was hunting a man who'd betrayed a trust with his kin, and when he found him, he'd do no less than any Sackett or Talon before him. So there's that one. The next one, we're going to have this one. This is an interesting name. These over. They're called the Californios. I never heard that term before. And this is 1977. It is number 42 in his standalone series. It's got a little bit of stainage on it, but it's pretty good for its age. High stakes in 1844. Nobody believed there was gold in California. Nobody, that is, except the Mulcarans and the old Indians with mystical, and an old Indian with mystical powers. The Mulcarians needed a treasure to settle the debt in their Malibu ranch. The Indian was willing to lead them to one, but riding hard on their trail was the greediest band of cutthroats north of Baja. Killing was their business. Doing it for gold would only make it sweeter. So there's that one. The next book we have is called Taggart by Louis L'Amour. This is a 1971. This is book 13 in his standalone series. So this is not part of a series. It's just a set of books. Standalones. Marked for death, Taggart was riding like hell through the red heart of Apache country, a bounty hunter. The deadliest lawman in the West was hot behind him. Then Taggart met the girl. She had a mule pack train loaded with pure raw gold, and the Apaches were on her trail. Taggart could leave her for the Apaches and get away to safety. If he could stay, he stayed. So there's that book. Next one we have is Louis L'Amour's Dark Canyon. This is 1971. It is number 20 in his standalone book, so it's not part of a series. Lightning with a Gun. Gaylord Riley set up a cattle range bordering Dark Canyon, a tough stretch of country. Rustlers used it to drive stolen cattle across the mountains north to the south. Desperate men skulked in it when they were in trouble. It was a road for bandit raids. It was a bad stretch of country. Next book we have is called Law of the Desert Born. This one here I found really interesting. It's a little beat up. It's got some tape. Sorry I keep hitting that arm. 1983. This is number 7 in his short story collectibles, but this was interesting when he wrote. It says, "Dear reader, I'm very pleased to share with you this collection of some of my short stories about men and women struggling to survive on the American frontier. Without my permission, a publisher I do not approve of is trying to publish early magazine versions of some of the stories in this book. I am outraged by a completely unauthorized edition of my stories. And I have put together this collection so my fans will not be shortchanged. This Bantam edition is the only authorized collection of Law of the Desert Born, and these and other stories that I have personally edited for my readers. There are more stories in this authorized edition than in any unauthorized edition. Hearing this title, as I have for my previous books of short stories such as Boundary and Buckskin Run, I have worked very hard to select these stories, refine them, and add notes of interest that I think may enhance my collection. I hope you enjoy reading this collection. Sincerely, Louis L'Amour." Shouldn't steal other people's work. The next book I have, there are two. One's a little later than the other, but it's the same book. This is North to the Rails by Louis L'Amour. It is a 1975 copyright. It is book 3 in the Chantry book series. The dude, he came from the east to buy cattle to the untamed land where there was no law but a man's raw courage. He came to his steers to the railroad not to kill. He was a peaceable man, but when French Williams and the local outlaws mistook him for a victim, there was lead to pay. So that's that book. Then we have Lando by Louis L'Amour. This is a 1970 copyright, book 7 in the Sackett series. Little grungy on the back. He fought alone and barefisted. Lando Sackett got to Texas with a well-oiled hog leg, a racing mule that didn't look worth its salt, and a damn good idea of whereabouts of buried gold across the border in Mexico. In Mexico, he had had luck. His party had to run for it, and when Lando stood rear guard, they pulled out and left him. 6 years in Mexico prison put muscles in his arms, fire in his heart, and pure recklessness in his head. When he caught up with the men who betrayed him, it didn't matter that he had no gun. The next book we have is Down the Long Hills by Louis L'Amour. This is a 1975 copyright. It is 29 in his standalone book, so it's not part of a series. They had one chance to make it. After the massacre, Hardy and Betty Sue were left with only a horse and knife with which to face the long battle against the wilderness. A 7-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl stranded on a limitless prairie. They were up against starvation, marauding Indians, savage outlaws, and wild animals. They were mighty stubborn, but the odds were against them, and their luck was about to run out. And then the last book of all, and this is also a Western, we have The Long Way to Texas by Lee McElroy. This is definitely a very aged, I hate that word. Did you dislike that word, discarded? I hate when they do that. Stamped once is fine, but not through a whole book. And then that aged tape, and then it copied itself into the other pages. This is a 1976 book, definitely aged. And it says, they'd been rousing words that had sent an intrepid band of Texan Confederates westward on a march meant to carry them all to the Pacific to claim Western territory for the South in bitter humiliation at the hands of the Union Army that had landed Lieutenant David Buckaloo and his 19 battle-scarred survivors in New Mexico. But stranded in a land where they are pitted against white men as well as Comanches, the tide is suddenly turned as the entire Union regiment is massacred by Indians. Soon an opportunity offers itself to Buckaloo and his men to redeem their honor. The chance to retrieve a cache of munitions. A cache of munitions secretly held on the ranch of the Union sympathizer in Mexico. And to commander it for their own needs. It means a dangerous mission through a hostile territory, but to David Bucklew it seems the only chance for any kind of victory. What it becomes is a journey through very real hell, in which Buckalew's new enemy proves to be his own battle-weary men. And my little cheat sheet fell. My little cheat sheet. And that is the conclusion of my reading of synopsises. So don't forget, if you're not on Whatnot, you're interested in books, come find me. And I'm still under Tammy's Passions, at Tammy's Passions there too. And whatever time zone you're in, I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you soon. Bye. And thanks for spending your time with me.